Well, hey everybody, I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to As Above, So Below, a rune and tarot divination for the 11th day of September, Monday, 2023. Let me make sure my sound is up. I'll turn it up a little bit more there. Well, here it is, September 11th, and the anniversary of that tragic day here in this country, um, where we were attacked. And I think everybody is thinking today about where they were at the time we were getting ready to go to work, and we saw it. We were watching TV because I had the TV on in the morning, the news on, and there it was, and we just sat there and watched, and because we were in such disbelief over what had happened. But if you look at the day itself, the 11, that's the master number for awakening and illumination, and I think that as tragic as it all was, I think that it opened our eyes to different things that maybe we had not realized before. The ninth month, 9 is about not just about generosity and spirituality, it's also about endings and completions. So it's almost like it was the end of something, the end of innocence, maybe. I think people started asking a whole lot more questions after that than maybe they had before. I'm sure there were always people that did that, but I know there were. But the rest of us started thinking about things maybe a little differently, and I don't think we've stopped. I think that so much has happened in this time that has been both good and bad, that we're still, it's almost like we're still in that moment of awakening to fundamental truths that are going on that we just don't know about and that we need to be clear on, especially going forward. So if I can add to that conversation in any way, it's that we need to keep our eyes open and be aware of who's telling us the truth and who isn't. Seems to be such an interesting truth, such an interesting thing right now. There's so many lies that go on. It's ridiculous, and the people lying just expect people to believe this nonsense. And unfortunately, some people do, and it's really this. It's like this watershed moment in a way, still. And but awakening takes time, and hopefully at the end of it all, we get there. So. Anyhow, let's go ahead and take the rune from the Elder Futhark bag for the above side of the significators here today. Well, we have Isa, a Norn rune, meaning the static realm or the present moment. It's about contraction. It's about will development. It's about alignment and spirit. It's that focus into form, essentially, the soul coming in that vortex that it comes in on when it seats itself into the body. It's alignment and spirit. It's bringing things to a rest. It's stillness. It's also becoming. So let's see what the my little elemental runes out of the bowl here for the geomancy side of things, the below side or ego side of things, physical reality side of things. Already we're talking about aligning in higher awareness here today on this anniversary of such a tragic thing happening. In terms of awakening and enlightenment here today with the 11, I have Carcer, which is an interesting rune. We had it last Monday, in last Monday's reading as well. But what we're talking about here looks like a little cage, or a little ampule, if you will. It's really about self-imprisonment, imprisoned by our own perceptions. It can mean constriction or oppression by others, but generally speaking, I like to see these from the standpoint of the self. Unless there's something to tell me that this is about somebody else. But how we imprison ourselves in terms of our perceptions and how who we align with. And again, if you're looking at Esau, who are we aligning with? Are we aligning in truth? Are we aligning in higher awareness? Or are we allowing the egos, the loudest ego voices to be the only ones we hear? Are we questioning? Are we trying to see things from a broader perspective? Or are we remaining in the bubble that we choose to live in? Sometimes it's easier to live there, isn't it? But is it really what's necessary to truly understand the fundamental truth that's really there? Or are we believing illusion that's being provided to us? So kind of a heavy thing, but on a heavy day, where we're having to think about these things again. And realistically, we shouldn't wait for September 11th to do that. We should be thinking about that all the time. You look at the slant of the media now. It's shameful. There's no journalism left, or at least very little. I mean, there's some, and I appreciate those people who speak and say things in a way that actually report what happened instead of their opinions about it, and trying to skew the report into their own little bubble, I guess, their own little level of cursor. But they're expecting everyone to believe what they say, and so they want to drag everybody else into that with them. It's like, well, no. Again, 11 is about awakening. It's about illumination. It's about clarity, seeing the truth for what it is, and not allowing somebody else's personal agenda to drag you into something that, isn't right, number one. It's not true, number one. And so, that's what they want to do. They need that support, because they know that what they have to say cannot stand on its own. The light of day, the illumination, the awakening, doesn't allow for that to happen. And so they just need everybody to buy into what they say in order to keep saying it, instead of being called out for it. So, anyhow, let's go ahead and cut the deck. Take the lower half. Well, we have some pretty mundane things for an exceptional day here. But let's talk about them. We have we have a run on wands, and so wands is the fire element, and that's going to be the will, invoking the will. It's also new opportunities and motivation and creativity. And then we have one from the suit of pentacles, which is the earth element. And so let's see, together we have a 5, a 10, and a 3. Well, so we have 8, and then the 10 reduces to 1. That would be 9. So again, something may be coming to either ending or completing, or in terms of that numerology, also again, spirituality, generosity, there could be that involved. But again, let's just go ahead and let's just go ahead and talk about the cards, and we'll see what order we want to put them in at the end of it. Here we have the 5 of wands. Here you see 5 guys. They each have a staff in their hands. It looks like they're fighting, but no one's getting hit. I've always been, it's this card always strikes me as, well, okay, they're fighting, and I was a martial artist in another life. My husband and I used to teach karate, and we worked with staffs, and trust me, when we're working out and working staff sets and whatnot, and essentially fighting with staffs without trying to hurt one another. Sometimes that worked out, sometimes that didn't, Eskrima sticks are shorter versions of them. They're about, they go from here to here when you measure them, when you make them. You want them this length from the tip of your finger down to your elbow, that when you're making your own Eskrima sticks. You're doing stick fighting and all of that. But the idea is that you learn how to fight with them, and that's not what's happening here. Just from my expert opinion, such as it is anymore. But I mean, here you have to me, it's just the voicing ideas and expressing all their will in a way that really isn't listening to anyone. They're not really communicating together. At least if they were to strike, if the staffs were to strike each other, then that would be a type of communication, if you will. I mean, in a broader sense, but they're making a point, basically. I'm going to hit you, and I'm trying to win. Nobody's really trying to win here. It just seems like there's a lot of voices here that are being, a lot of will that's being exerted. These are my ideas. No, my idea is more important. And everyone's talking at once, and nobody is, even though this isn't the card of swords, everyone's talking at once, but nobody's listening. And so it just seems like there's just a lot of stuff, a lot of expression, willful expression going on here. But everybody's caught up in their own thing. The only one that might be striking might be this one here, striking this one, but you can't tell for certain. To me, it just seems like maybe there's an argument, or maybe there's just this big disagreement in terms of what opportunity they're going to take, or if it's a collaborative effort here starting out, and nobody can agree on what that is. But 5 is about change. It's about innovation and variety. It's also about freedom versus restriction. And so something has happened here, and maybe before they could talk to one another and each one would listen, but now it's like at the end of the day, like, no, this is my idea. No, this is my idea. This is where I want to take this. This is where I want to take it. And nobody's really listening to one another. In other words, there's no real integration there. Any of the any of the odd numbers in tarot, even numbers are more harmonious. Odd numbers are a little bit more conflict oriented, if you will, and maybe not so integrated together. And I really think that that's what this is about. Something's happened where. Again, each one may be living in their own carcer experience, where they have their own bubble of opinions and direction and all of that they have. Creative, the spark of their creativity just isn't aligning with anyone else's, or at least it hasn't gotten the chance to yet. We'll say that. But here, then we move on. We double that 5 to a 10. That's why I didn't really want to move these cards around yet. Patterns are interesting in tarot, and you want to pay attention to them. Whether it's 1, 2, 3, ace 2, 3, or if it's all even 2, 4, 6, or you have doubles, so you could have a 3, 6, and a 9, where you're doubling things. You're increasing by increments of 3. You see some kind of a numerological pattern to it. You need to pay attention to that. Here you have a 5 and a 10. Even though we're going to reduce this 10 to 1, at this moment it's still a 10. And so 5, double 5 is a 10. So after all of this is done, you could look at it this way. This guy has made his way. He's either won that argument, or everyone finally decided to go maybe off in their own directions. So this is the one he has here. The 10 of wands can be viewed a few different ways. One, they're carrying a heavy burden, which certainly. You see he's walking in direction of what's likely his home. Again, you see a separation here, a dual line of separation or demarcation there, where he's out here earning his living. Excuse me. And now he's bringing all of it. It's either all that he's created home to show what he's done, or he's bringing home all of the, maybe he's an entrepreneur and he's bringing home all of the new clients he has to take a look at that and to show his family, this is how successful I'm being for all of us. But that's he's walking in direction of the home. And if you reduce this 10 to 1, I mean 10 can mean the end of something, but it can also mean the beginning of another. If you were to terminate the Roman numeral 10 on the ends, somewhere I have a pen. There it is. And then you have the rune Dagaz. And I only do this to show you, here's the Roman numeral 10. Okay. And from there, if you terminate the ends, again with Isa, you have Dagaz. And Dagaz it's about the new day. And so you have the end of one phase and the beginning of another. So it's one thing coming to its conclusion and a new period beginning. And here, if you were to turn this on its side, what do you have? You kind of have Dagaz there, don't you? Kind of in a skewed fashion. But basically, he's trusting the process. He's not looking where he's going. He knows where he's going. And he's carrying all of this. Again, it's a heavy burden, but at the same time, it can represent some wealth that could be coming his way as well, with new opportunities, new clients again. And so if you reduce the 10 to 1, you've got new beginnings. And so you might have been kind of at odds here, but eventually you got what you wanted to do after all of that. And now you're doing what you need to do to increase your security in life. And these are all the new opportunities he has to show his family when he gets back here. And again, new beginnings. Maybe it took time to get there for you. And so maybe what this is talking about is from the disparate voices, talking to other people, getting, finding out what they think about what you want to do. Now you're doing it. And you're kind of showing, you're trusting the process that you've decided on is the right one for you. And there's a sense of new beginnings here, where whatever this is going to yield could yield some security for the home and the family if you have one. And what does that look like? And we could have put this card in between. We could have talked about this next, and then I'll tell you why after we talk about this. Here you have a guy who's working. He's working his craft. He's working his trade. Maybe he's a mason. You see two people come by to admire his work. The Three of Pentacles is really about that type of an integration, that type of a transaction that's lucrative. You're out there showing what you know how to do. I mean, some people do it by advertising, but back in the day, it would be some stonemason going around doing things for different people, and others coming by and saying, "Oh, I like what you're doing, and maybe I'd like to hire you." And so again, we could put this second after the Five of Wands, where lots of things are being offered in terms of new opportunities, and my ideas are better, and this is my idea. Maybe nobody's listening, but somewhere along the way you make a decision, and there you are, and whatever you're doing is starting to pay off. 3 is about communication, and so this could be about you're out there in the world, you're communicating to others what you can do, and then all of a sudden, as a result of that, you have something positive to show for it. But implied in that, in terms of Carcer, is you got to step outside your comfort zone. You've got to let go of perceptions that might have held you back. And maybe whatever was going on here, you heard something in this process of all the voices not listening to one another. Well, maybe something stuck with you, and maybe several things stuck with you, and you were able to step outside your comfort zone and then go ahead and start building your financial security with the job that you have. This was the idea that you had. I'm going to be in this case, he's a stonemason, and he's working on either repairing something or creating something in this beautiful building here. You can tell here. You see the integration here with the pentacles, there. And when you see the pentagram in the center, you're looking at all elements plus spirit, all in balance with one another, in a way that, and then you have the triplicity of it. Anytime you think about triplicities, you think in terms of 3: past, present, future, maiden, mother, crone, mind, body, spirit. But there's an alignment there, and with Isa, it's talking about that alignment of where things are coming into alignment for you, and you're no longer restricting yourself via perception, and now the sky's the limit, basically, and it shows this here. Perhaps as he's standing here and he's essentially advertising what he's doing by doing that, what he's been able to do is to gain as much new opportunity as he possibly can from it. And then when he has that, he understands the cause and effect of what he did here, and that enables him to trust the process of it all and to move forward, and then to take home what he's showing, to show to his family. Look at all I've got for all of us. Look what I've got that's going to help us survive, essentially. All the new jobs I've been able to get, by standing there doing what I do and having people come by. Look at all the people that hired me as a result. So again, being able to see the bigger picture, seeing the value maybe in ideas that other people have that maybe aren't yours, but at the same time, you can co-opt that a little bit into what you're doing and make what you're doing a whole lot more lucrative. And getting out from under the whole perceptions that might keep you from doing what you want to do and succeeding the way you want to succeed. Fire element, it's about success. And in conjunction with pentacles, you're talking about material success and new opportunities. And again, something changed here. You may have gotten something out of a spirited discussion between other people, either in your trade or not, just people generally in business, where I can remember lots of times people would talk to me about different things, and they had ideas that maybe I could twist up a little bit and make it apply to my situation. Wouldn't necessarily, when all was said, wouldn't necessarily look like what they did that was successful for them, but it gets you thinking, and it gets you planning, and it gives you some inspiration for something that can be very lucrative for you. And so if this is something where you're trying to maybe consider starting a business or of some kind, or even if it's just you work for somebody else and you're talking to other people, and just in general, and someone says something, that applies to their circumstance, but you can extrapolate something from it, and you take it back to work and say, hey, what about this? Then that creates a level of security for you within that business, where the boss is looking at you going, wow, this person's got some great ideas and that we can maybe implement here. So there's a lot of ways that this could manifest. But I really think that this is kind of a career type of a thing where you need to step outside your comfort zone and explore some other ideas that maybe you didn't think about before, that maybe even the conversation you're having you're not having it to do that. You're just having a bunch of friends that get together and everybody's talking all at once. And, well, I'm doing this and I think this and I want to do that. And you might be able to glean something from that and take something from that you can then apply to your own life, whether it's in your own business or one you want to start, or one that or stuff you can take back to the place you work to make that whole experience more secure for you. Again, alignment in higher consciousness helps with that, with ISA, where you can see the entire picture, and then focus that will in a concentrated way to make something happen for yourself. So I think that, and again, once you get all that going, then you begin to see it sort of takes on a life of its own and an energy of its own and a momentum of its own. And at that point, you can then trust the process like this guy's doing, and carry home all of this to show your family and say, look, I think this was a good thing, and I think we're going to be successful, and this can lead then to our own level of material security. And so I think that I think that the Carcer experience, it just keeps you back. It holds you back from being able to think about other ways of seeing things. And then focus that will, that higher will, into manifesting something really good in your life with ISA. So anyhow, I guess that's it. We did it on a Monday. I hope you guys had a good week last week. The garden season's coming to an end, and my husband and I were both, you get to that point where you run, and then especially him, and because I have 2 torn meniscus in my left knee, so I don't run anymore, but he does, and it's like all of a sudden we're at the end of the season, or we're getting to the end of the season, and you sort of collapse in your chair, and you're like, oh wow, I'm really tired, and light time's changing and all of that, so we start feeling energetically a little bit different right now, and so we have some more things to do, unfortunately, or fortunately. The garden isn't quite done yet, so we're still in the harvest part of it all. We've got on the, what is it, the 23rd? Is it the 23rd that we're going to have? It's the 22nd. Well, it's 11:50 p.m. when the actual equinox is on the 22nd. So if you're going to do an equinox ritual on that day, then you're going to have to stay up for it. I'm probably going to do that, but I do one every year. And I use Dagaz when I do it, the end of one period. You're standing in that balance point where I draw this on the ground, and I stand right here in the center, and I feel that energy, of balance right there, of balancing the past with the future. And so it's kind of a cool thing to do, but it'll be done at 11:50 that night. And then you have Mabon at that time, and this is just harvest time, where we're really taking stock of what we've got, and what we're going to have for the winter and all of that. Because we grow food for the winter, and so we'll be taking stock of what we have, and during this time, and whether it's garden related or not. I think maybe this is just the time, when kids go back to school, and unless you homeschool, but even then, you're structured in the same way. We kind of were and weren't when we homeschooled the kids. They went to school part of the time, but at the end of seventh and at the end of fourth that year, we pulled, one was at the end of seventh and one was at the end of fourth, and we pulled them out and let them finish at home. They're both gifted, so it was really hard I just didn't feel comfortable leaving them there. And we talked to some folks who were doing it and were being successful at it, and so it sort of eliminated any fear we really had, but well, not all fear we had, but at least it gave us a direction to go in, and then they're doing very well for themselves. So they went to college, graduated, and they're both doing extremely well. So it worked for us. But in any event, that's a side thing. But this is just a time, I think, where in September, where things change, the kids go back to school, and the weather starts to shift, and you start thinking about other things. And so you take stock of what you've got, and where you're going with it. And I don't know, at least that's what I do. So anyway. Thanks for coming by. If you haven't yet clicked subscribe, I hope you'll do that, and come back again on Thursday for another edition of As Above, So Below. Be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.